Welcome back to Data Leaps. In today's video, we're talking about how to invoke a Databricks workflow in a workspace that has front-end private link enabled from public internet. Now, front-end private link says whatever is hitting my REST API, JDBC, or DBC workspace has to be in a private network. Now, if you have a trigger that you want to use that is located in public internet, my customer has Jira, then it cannot invoke Databricks workflows directly because it's not in the private network. How do we do this? Let's head over to my laptop. Now, what you have is Databricks workspace. And what you have is front-end private link. And this says, if you want to talk to me, you need to be in private network. And what my customer has is a Jira, and this Jira is in public internet. So by default, this will not work. Right, this will not work. It will get a 403 because basically Databricks will reject the access request because of front-end private link. What needs to happen is there needs to be a middleware, and the middleware needs to have inbound and outbound traffic separate. And what we need to have is a middleware. This middleware has inbound and outbound traffic separate, and you'll be able to call this middleware using Jira, and this middleware will call Databricks workflows in a private network. So here is traveling through private network, and the inbound traffic is public internet. How to do this, you might ask. So this middleware can be essentially anything on the cloud service would allow you to separate inbound and outbound traffic. On Azure, you would have things like logic apps and functions. On AWS, you have something like Lambda. In this example, we'll use logic apps. In the last video, we showed how to use logic apps to call Databricks workflows without any network constraints. And in this video, we'll set up the previous logic app with network configuration so it can call Databricks in a private network. If you haven't checked the last video on the logic app setup, please go watch that first before you continue. Otherwise, come with me to Azure Portal. So here I am in Azure Portal. This is the last workflow we worked out because I didn't have a Jira instance, so I used the HTTP request instead. And here you have the HTTP requests, you got the response, you also have the HTTP call that you use to call Databricks workflows. Now, just to show it, this currently works. This was on a workspace that we showed in the last demo that didn't have any network security set up. So this should just work. We'll change the param value to no VNet and we'll send. And you can see that no VNet is passed in. And if we go over to the run history, you should be able to see that this was run successfully. And now I have a different workspace. This is the workspace where we have networking security set up. If you go to the networking tab, you'll see that there's no public network access allowed. And you also have no public IP and no Databricks rules. This means both front-end and back-end private link was enabled. And you can see that I have two private links. One is front-end and one is back-end. If I go over to the workspace and I try to log in, it should log me out and say that my IP is not allowed to access this workspace. And if I copy over the URL and we go to our workspace, we'll change the parameters of our URL, jobs, ID, and path into our new workspace URL and job ID and path. You can see that now the parameters are changed. And if I try to run the same thing again, This says 200, so at least the API call was received properly. But if we look at the wrong history, you see that the job actually failed. And if we click into it, you see that this gives a forbidden, which is a 403. So the networking security or the front-end private link was forbidden our workflows in Logic Apps to call the jobs API. What we need to do here is to set up the outbound network from Logic Apps to be in the private network that Databricks Workspace is in. How do we do that? Is first, let's take a look at the VNet that Databricks is in. So this is the VNet we set up for Databricks. This is using VNet injection. So it's a pretty standard setup with public subnet, private subnet, as well as private link subnet. Everything is set up as per the standard deployment. But additionally, I've got a additional subnet called LA-connection, that stands for Logic App connection. Then I've got a route table that's connecting both the private link subnet as well as the LA connection subnet. So these two subnets can communicate. This additional subnet you need to set up, and the route table you need to set up. And now if we go back to the Logic Apps and we go to the networking, in the virtual network integration, you'll be able to set up the virtual network. You need to choose your VNet, and you need to choose the additional subnet that you set up, connect. So now the connection is done. You can see that it's connected to the LA connection subnet in my VNet, and then it's also have the route table set up. Now if we call it again, and we'll call it param VNet this time, you can get the 200 back, go back to Azure portal, and look at the job history. And you can see that this is successful. So you would have had the parameter passing as VNet, and then it successfully called the job. So this is how you set up networking security in Logic Apps and to help you call the Databricks workflows in a private network from public internet. I hope this is helpful. See you in the next video. Thank you for watching Data Leaps. If you think the content is useful, please like and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it.